Hey everyone, I'm back in a new year. Um, New Year, same glasses, flare with the ring light. I cannot do without the ring light though, because otherwise I look about 96 years of age. But yeah, so I wanted to talk about Hamnet because it's obviously a huge film of the year, and it is nominated for a number of Oscars which have just come out. Um, Apparently Jessie Buckley's odds on to win the Oscar. I don't know if it is going to win any other ones. From what I follow a lot of film podcasts and stuff like that, and they talk about the odds and who's predicted for what. And I think at the moment it's only really considered for Jessie Buckley. So nice to see an Irish person win an Oscar. But so I read Hamnet a couple of months ago at this stage, and I wanted to read it before I saw the film. I knew roughly that it was based on a true story that Shakespeare had lost a child. Shakespeare and his wife Agnes had lost a child, and the Hamlet, the play, then was written a couple of years after that, and it was kind of a tribute to Hamlet. And Hamlet are interchangeable in Danish language, which is something I didn't know. But so I wanted to read it, and I actually really enjoyed it. And I don't read historical fiction; it's not really my thing. I'm more contemporary fiction, and that's just a preference. And I know historical fiction has a huge following and readership, and so for that, I will say, written by Maggie O'Farrell, an Irish lady who has been nominated for an Oscar this morning for co-writing the screenplay with Chloe Zhao. And yeah, so I thought it was really good, and obviously some of it is made up off the top of Maggie O'Farrell's head, but then a lot of it is done through, like, her study and research. And I really enjoyed the story of Agnes before she met William Shakespeare, and she was kind of a mystical figure and seen then as kind of witch-like and stuff. And she's really the main character in it. It's not William Shakespeare, which I enjoyed, because you can obviously read and watch stuff about William Shakespeare whenever you want, but you don't see the other part of the story. And she was obviously in the children's life just as important, but even in William Shakespeare's life, she was hugely important. And you get to see from Maggie O'Farrell's point of view of what Agnes would be going through at the time, and obviously the loss of which is the centre of the story, the loss of losing a son. And I really liked it. So obviously I'd heard a lot about the film, and the film had been given really great reviews when it first came out. And that does happen when, like, a film's on the circuit, the festival circuit, and sometimes these films get overinflated a little bit when they come out initially in the festivals, and then the kind of reviews start to go down a little bit, and it kind of like tempers your excitement a little bit. But so we went to see Hamnet, myself and Joanna, and Joanna brought the tissues, and I was skeptical because I had read or heard a couple of things about it afterwards, about emotional manipulation that was taking place within the film. And obviously, when you hear about something like that, your kind of antenna goes up, and you kind of think, well, where is that going to happen? I didn't really feel it in the book that you were being manipulated by anything, and it was kind of straight up telling the story, and So I was going in with I was reserved. But I was looking forward to it because obviously I didn't love the novel, but I really enjoyed the novel. So we went to see it, and I would say Joanne was the youngest in there. If you took me out of it, probably the youngest by 30 years. But with me in it, obviously she's still the youngest. So it was an older crowd. It was a daytime showing in Dunleary's, the cinema in Dunleary there. And we had a voucher, thank you to the Egan brothers for that. But I got that for Christmas, but we had the voucher, which was very nice, and I had kind of forgotten about it, and Joanne reminded me. And it was actually a decent crowd in there for that time of the day, and I'd been out a week or so at this point. And like, there's no real spoilers I can give with regards to this film. It's a true story. It's based on, you know, the death of William Shakespeare and Anya Shakespeare. Um, they're you know, that's what it's about. And you know, there's something beautiful. It's beautifully shot and visually, it's stunning. Like, you know, the forest scenes and the scenes of Anya's. She's trained at Hawk, um, and some of those scenes are kind of amazingly shot. And Jessie Buckley is obviously really great in the role. Like, she wouldn't be favourite for an Oscar if she wasn't. She's very captivating on screen, and I've always liked her in films. But obviously this is her best performance so far. But it's the one that the camera lingers on her the most and is allowed to present how good she is. If you know what I mean. Like, I've seen her in some good films in Wild Rose, and you know, I've really enjoyed her as an actress. But I think this one was like, Chloe Zhao was almost like deciding that this was her vehicle and her star turn was going to be Hamnet. And for the most part, the kids in the film, and you know, child actresses and actors and whatever, they kind of, they can be hit or miss for obviously for a very very obvious reasons. But I thought they were quite good. The only the only bad performance was the guy who plays Hamlet on the stage. In the stage part, I just didn't think he was that good. But I've seen him in films before, which I thought he was all right. So there you go. But you know, here am I looking for this emotional manipulation, and Joanne's in the seat next to me, bawling, crying, and there's little bits of tissue flying everywhere. And look, she wasn't the only one in the cinema that was getting upset. I didn't think everybody was upset, by the way. It wasn't one of those ones where everybody was bawling their eyes out. I what did Joanne said something about, you made a stone, or have you no heart, or something. But it was funny anyways, whatever she said. But you know, I knew what was going to happen and stuff, so obviously it makes a difference. And look, I've got upset watching films before, obviously, but this didn't hit me in that way. But as I was looking for the emotional manipulation and going off spoilers, I won't tell you exactly where I felt it was happening. But I like towards the end, like, sorry, I kicked the light rig. Towards the end, I did start to see it, and I thought, okay, like, I wondered if they needed to do that. Like, it didn't feel like it was a necessary thing. That like everything was emotional as it was, and it was sad, and you know, a child passing away and stuff is terrible. And Jessie Buckley's performance and her sense of loss in it and her grief is very powerful. As is Paul Mescal's in a way, but he plays it differently. It's not the same thing, and sometimes he comes across as quite cold, and that's what Agnes feels, I think, in how the William Shakespeare character deals with it, is that it's back to work, and you kind of wonder, like, does he care? But obviously that was his way of processing his grief. But there was, you know, like I said, towards the end, there was a couple of moments where it just pissed me off. I will say, like, there's one thing I don't like. Well, there's lots of things I don't like. But in film, if it's about someone famous who was an artist, whether they're a painter, a writer, a musician, whatever it might be, if it shows them coming up with their most famous line, song, painting, whatever it might be, during a kind of a moment, and they just go, oh, and then they come out with whatever it is, that always annoys me. I don't think it's necessary. And they did it, and that, I immediately was like, oh, Jesus. And they didn't really need to do it. See, I know that I'm speaking kind of around the subject, but they didn't need to do it because it comes later on anyway. So there was no need for that moment to happen, only to say, oh, isn't William Shakespeare dealing with it in his different way? He didn't need it. There's a bit at the very end, which I won't say, but people will realise it when it happens. They'll either bawl their eyes out, or they'll either probably react the way I did and go, oh, Jesus. So, you know, I always give my letterbox score, and I think, I know Joanne does as well, and I think she gave it 4 stars out of 5. She was just bawling, honestly, like, we're properly crying. Even at one point, she just turned to me, and she thought maybe the crying was finished, and she just turned around and went, oh, for fuck's sake, and just started crying again. And I didn't cry, Not that I didn't think it was very sad in certain moments, but the very last bit really pissed me off, and I won't spoil it for you. But you know, I gave it 2 stars, and that was probably one of those stars was for Jessie Buckley. So the other one was probably for the production design and the cinematography and the way it was shot, like, and you know. But that's it. So if that sways you either way, that's fine. Maybe the Oscar nominations will sway you. Maybe Jessie Buckley alone will sway you because you're supporting a fellow Irish person. But either way, you know, it's up to you. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Thank you so much. Bye.